Alright, what's going on, guys? Last episode of Vinland Saga, episode 24 review. Let's do it! Now, in episode 23, we saw King Sven calling Askeladd to the front of the meeting hall, and Askeladd was getting down on one knee and he was bowing to the king, and he was getting prepared for a possible demise. But it turns out that King Sven actually wants to reward and congratulate Askeladd for all his hard work. So King Sven's like, I'm gonna give you a reward, and I want to acknowledge you for your devotion to the army and to Canute. Now, Askeladd sees an opportunity in this. He decides that he's going to use this situation against King Sven. He realizes with all the nobles and generals around that he can ask him a series of questions and make some requests of him that wouldn't be easy for him to reject because he would have to maintain composure. So this is the opportunity that Askeladd uses to ask King Sven to not attack Wales. And his reasons are that the Danish army is very weary, they've been in a very long war, the men need some rest, they've lost a lot of casualties. This is the time for them to rebuild, strengthen their forces, and just recuperate. And secondly, the terrain in Wales is very rocky and mountainy, and there's not a lot of resources, so that would mean that the army wouldn't have a way to gather food, which would make them very limited and make their journey that much harder. Now, many of the nobles are put off by the very notion that Askeladd is requesting this of King Sven, and they're basically saying, know your place, and Floki decides to interject as well. Who are you to question the king? But King Sven has a surprising response, and he tells the others that Askeladd is a very loyal subject, and that he's done good work by speaking his mind and bringing this to his attention. Now, right after that, King Sven decides to close the distance between himself and Askeladd and whisper something into Askeladd's ear. Now, he knows that Wales is very important to Askeladd, and he makes a note of this as well. He's like, I knew Wales was important to you, so I'll give you a choice. It's either Wales or Prince Canute. If you choose Wales, I want Prince Canute's head. And if you decide Prince Canute, then I'm going to invade Wales. So Askeladd is stuck with an impossible decision. If he decides to kill Canute, he's betraying the alliance that he established with him. If he doesn't kill Canute and he allows Wales to get invaded, he's betraying his heritage and his people. So he's in a quandary. He doesn't know what to do, but then he decides, fuck it. You know what? There's only one way to preserve both Canute and Wales: by sacrificing myself. And he basically tells the king to go fuck himself. He's like, you aren't deserving of wearing that crown on your head. And then after this, everyone's in a ruckus, and Askeladd drops the bomb on them. He's like, you know what? Askeladd's not my real name. That was just sort of a nickname that my mom gave me. My real name is Lucius Artorius Castus, and I am the rightful king of England. Now, I gotta admit, this was a bit hackneyed and cliched. That being said, it was still pretty entertaining and still pretty badass at the same time. So we'll call it a wash. Wow, the Artorius that we've been talking about all this time turned out to be Askeladd. So very interesting stuff. So then the various soldiers and Floki tell him to stop and to get away from the king and to lock him up, and Askeladd decides to draw his sword. And because King Sven closed the distance on him, he's within range of one strike that would end his life. And King Sven is trying to use his power and clout to calm Askeladd down, to put him in his place, but Askeladd is not having any of it. He tells King Sven he's not deserving of wearing that crown on his head, and he just slices his head off. So the king's head is lying on the floor, Askeladd is splattered in blood, and everyone is in shock and awe, especially Canute. He did not see this coming. This was not part of the plan. But Askeladd gives him a look like, hey dude, I just gave you the opportunity, you better not waste it. And Canute realizes what Askeladd was attempting to do, and he decides to shout at the top of his lung, capture that man, make sure we take him alive. And then that's when all hell breaks loose. Because right when this happens, all the men start attacking Askeladd, and he's just butchering them one by one, slicing and dicing. And outside of the area, Thorfinn hears all the ruckus. He decides to come in, and he sees Askeladd fighting everyone. So Thorfinn's like, oh shit, I gotta do something about this. Now, Askeladd's still fighting in this time, and none of the men can do anything to stop him. So Floki comes into the fold, and he's like, you bastard, you ruined all our plans. And Askeladd's like, dude, you can't think for yourself. You can't see the bigger picture or think for the future. You're all about the here and now, and you're not worthy. And then Askeladd gets the upper hand on Floki. He's got his sword bearing down on him. He's ready to make the kill. He's like, beg for your life, and then I'll kill you. And then right as Askeladd is about to deal the decisive blow, a sword pierces into his abdomen. And it's not Thorkel, it's not Thorfinn, it's frickin' Prince Canute. He delivers the blow on Askeladd, the fatal blow that is gonna eventually end his life. Wow, what an amazing plot twist. Now, we've seen Canute go from a weak, meek person who had no self-confidence and no aspirations of ruling the country to a man who is now taking his destiny into his hands by stabbing Askeladd, who killed the king of Denmark, so thus making Canute a warrior/hero and the rightful king due to his birthright. So Askeladd, he's almost about to die now, and guess what? Thorfinn is pissed as all hell. The kill that should have been his is now gone. Prince Canute seized it from him. And in the last dying breaths, Askeladd's like, look, just finish me, Thorfinn. You can finally get your kill. But, at the end of the day, that's not what he really wanted. He wanted an actual fair and square battle with Askeladd, the way his dad really never got, because Askeladd tricked Thors and killed him. And he wanted to avenge him via an honorable way. And it's very fitting that it should end in this fashion, because Thorfinn needs to learn that the world does not play to our expectations or to our fantasies, and it especially does not play by the rules. You have to understand that the world is very cruel and it's unforgiving. And those who are willing to see that and capitalize on it are the victors. And those who expect justice and fair play are the losers. So Askeladd tries to impart some wisdom on the Thorfinn. He's like, look, become a true warrior. Your place is not here. Go to a different land. He's referring to Vinland, which Leif Erikson was trying to inform him about as well. And then Askeladd ends up passing away. And then Thorfinn, after all these episodes, you would think at some point his eyes would finally open up and he would begin to see the light and he would begin to understand how to proceed forward in a meaningful fashion and become a true warrior who does not need swords to kill other people. But unfortunately, Thorfinn proves once again that he is a fucking imbecile, and he goes and slices Prince Canute and even draws blood. It's like this kid doesn't learn anything throughout these 24 episodes. I mean, I understand we could see some more growth going forward, but for me, I just felt like he was very weak and just God damn, so childish. But I suppose it's realistic in the sense that a lot of adolescents don't come into their own to their mid to late 20s, sometimes even 30s. So it's definitely feasible, and Thorfinn definitely has a lot of character growth going forward. Now, with that said, that's the end of season 1, guys. I gotta say, I very much enjoyed this season. There were some things that I wish were a little better. The animation at times was a bit spotty, very inconsistent, and some of the characters were a bit weak. I felt like Thorkel and Thorfinn could have used better characterization, and some of the scenes with Thorfinn running around like a ninja, like Naruto, and those unrealistic physical feats were just a bit too much for me. That being said, Askeladd was a fantastic character. He will sorely be missed. Such great characterization, so much depth and detail and realism. I love his cunning nature and abrasive attitude, and how he was able to outsmart his various adversaries. Canute was also a very good character. I enjoyed his development, although I felt like his transition from a meek, reserved pussy to a self-confident, aspiring king was a bit sudden. Happened a little bit too fast for my liking, but he was still a very interesting character nonetheless. So with that said, guys, Vinland Saga Season 1 is in the books. We'll have to see what happens in Season 2. I'm very excited, and I hope we get it in the near future. But with that said, I'll catch you guys on the flip side.